Alrighty. Hey Ryan, how are you today? Great to see you.
Hey, Amy, how are you? I'm great. Great to see you.
Good. We're staying great and we're also very busy right now. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining me. And our time is quite relevant because I wanted today, I wanted to talk about, so parents that are watching this now, watching this on the replay later tonight. So Ryan is a college consultant. You all know that I do college application essays. I'm not a college consultant, and we really have enjoyed some wonderful conversations. And the feedback from parents has been, really how we're adding value. And I thought with early action deadlines coming up for November 1st. Just what's the state of the union in the world of the college consultant this week? How are your students doing? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, we most of my students have gotten their applications out, but of course, with any group, you're always going to have a few that are waiting to the last minute to get things done. So with those last few, we are, pushing them through to the end, if you will, trying to get them to the finish line.
Um, right. And I mean, I know I can picture like when we say like finish line, um, with the college essays, but what does that look like in your neck of the woods? Like
Mhm.
where are there maybe some bottlenecks or where are you finding you're like pushing students more? I mean, what does that look like for you guys?
Well, as you know, I think the biggest bottleneck is with the supplemental essays.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and students kind of wait till the last minute to do those. Right? And so they get the Common App done, they get the Common App personal
Yes.
statement done, and then they just wait to the last minute to try to write those supplemental essays. And sometimes those can be just as important as the Common App personal statement, or in some cases, even more important, depending
Right?
upon the college. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, if there is a mom out there, a dad,
Mhm.
students, and they have a busy week. Like I know my one of my kids has like these semifinals for
Yeah.
her sports. And she's going to be traveling.
Right.
Kids are getting sick. They have other tests and they're looking at like they have to submit by and on, November 1st.
Sure.
Give us some things we can just hold on to as far as getting organized,
Yeah.
doing the work, and being done. Like
Mm.
what what do we do? How do we help these kids?
Yeah, you mentioned that's a great point about being organized, because right now they should be trying to manage their deadlines. I mean, most students have a pretty good
Right?
idea of what's due and when they're due, especially the ones with November 1st early action deadline. But
Yeah.
we should all keep in mind that we should have a checklist of what needs to be submitted. Um, double
Yeah.
check everything, whether it's test scores. Do they need to submit
Yeah.
it? Do they need transcripts? Have they gotten that? Have they got their letters of recommendation from their teacher? So, one of the first things is just kind of double checking their submissions when they do submit it and just managing those deadlines. So that's the first thing, as
Mhm.
you mentioned before. Yeah.
Mhm. And what if you have a student now that's an interesting one about the teacher recommendations, which, if I recall, you and I started to talk about last spring. What if you have that kid saying, "You know what, Mr. Clark? I've asked my chem teacher and he's so busy and he says he'll get it to me on time and he just doesn't understand. The due
Right.
date is November 1st." Like, do you step in or like what do you tell
Yeah.
your client student?
It's a great question. Most teachers are really good at
Yeah.
understanding what the deadline dates are. They have this down
Yeah.
pat. But every once in a while, they'll wait till the last minute just because of they're busy, just as like we are, and just like the students are. So I tell my students to remind them, but remind them in a way that's not going to make them mad. So I tell them to be very gentle, a gentle reminder. And so that could be just stopping by the office before school starts, have a
Perfect.
coffee, in hand, or a cookie or something like that. Say, hey, Mr. Smith,
Cookie.
good seeing you again. Just want to do a quick reminder that I'm sending my application on November
Yeah,
1st,
yeah.
and I still haven't seen your letter of recommendation. Anything that you can do, or if there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know. But just want to give you a quick reminder, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That's awesome. I love what you said. It reminds me of this like motto I have for students and students that are really good at this with me. It's called being pleasantly persistent. Like, hey, Miss Haskell, I sent you my supplemental for this college 3 days ago. I haven't heard and okay, thanks for then instead of like, "Hey, where are my comments?" or something
Right.
like that. So pleasantly persistent. I love that.
That's a great
And,
way to
you
put it.
know yeah, for all of us, right?
Mhm.
So, here's an interesting question. I mean, kind of like State of the Union-ish. Here we are, very end of October, approaching this early action November 1st due date. What changes or have you noted yet or like trends that are affecting, college applications, college admissions so far? I mean, because granted, we're through with the early action the
Sure.
15th, right?
Right.
And as a college consultant, are you seeing any of the things we talked about last spring as far as what the colleges are doing affect your students, affect your kids?
Not yet, not yet. I don't think we've seen the ramifications of that yet. But one of the things that I am seeing that we check for is the use of AI in their essays. I'm sure you're doing the
Mhm.
same thing.
Yeah,
And as you know, the
yeah,
colleges,
that's good. Yeah,
some of these colleges, if they see any AI, they will just toss it, right? Not all
yeah,
colleges and universities do that, but
yeah,
some
yeah,
do. So I just give my students a head up and say, hey, we're detecting some AI here. Um, just so you know, this is kind of
yeah.
the worst case scenario. What do you want to do, right? And so we try to put it
Right,
back on the students, saying, hey, and some of my students, they'll use like Grammarly or something, and the AI
right,
detector will go off. And so I'll say, yeah, I understand that does happen. Why don't we go back and just kind of rephrase that
right.
a little bit or change it?
Yeah,
But in other cases, it's pretty bad, right? And
it
so
is pretty bad, right?
we want to make sure these students understand, hey, these colleges and universities are checking for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. And um what are some of the ways that if a student says, "Okay, I thought it was just helping me a little and this AI is helping me too much." Like, where do you go with that? Like, how do you help them, still feel motivated, write these essays, pull out of having AI help them too much? I mean, without getting too specific. I mean, because I know this is an increase in both of our worlds as far as college applications and the essays. Yeah.
And yeah, we should have a whole like 20, 15 minutes discussion just on that, right? We could do a
We
teaching
will. Yeah,
day
we
on
will.
that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think there is questions that you can ask AI and it doesn't affect the composition of the essay, right? And so there are certain questions that students can ask and use AI to help with their essay, and there's
Right,
certainly some questions they should not be asking
right,
AI to do,
right,
right? And
right,
so
of
once they
course.
understand that, that helps them.
And what have you seen as far as the use of AI for, like, writing not an essay, but let's say the activity list?
Yeah, we see that every once in a while. It's not as prevalent just because there's only 150 characters. Um, and most of the time, they're not starting with AI. They're starting from what they've already written. And
Right.
so if they do use AI, it does just kind of change it a little bit, but doesn't
Mhm.
completely change the whole activity list.
Right.
So, we do see it, but it's not as prevalent.
It's not as prevalent. Okay, very cool. And as far as, you know, let's say there are, just a few of your, students out there right now, and, they're just procrastinating, and and they know that procrastinating to meet this November 1st due date is actually probably gonna hurt their application,
Sure.
right? They're
Sure.
not gonna have enough time to double check things like your thank you for the tips, I've put them in the comments already. How are you helping them, like, get out of this, like, ugh, whether it's writer's block or, "I'm just so sick of doing this." Like, is there I know you do, like, group calls, you also do the one-on-one. I mean, are you bringing in some humor, or have you maybe not had this? You've had because I know your students, like you, are very well organized, and I mean,
Yeah.
what are you seeing right now? Like, literally, because 'cause I'm seeing some panic among with the essay writing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I can definitely see that. Um, so, yeah, I guess the question is, what are we doing, or what am I doing to help with the student that is just feeling overwhelmed and panic? Is that kind of what
Yes.
we're asking? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so, yeah.
Yeah. So with those students, number one, I try to remind them that this is just the first deadline, right? And so also to remind them it's not necessarily going to affect your chances of getting in if you do not make the early action deadline, right? It is
Mm,
okay if you
that's
don't,
good. Yeah.
right? And because I tell them it's, if you
Okay.
submit an application that hasn't been thoroughly checked and your essay hasn't been thoroughly reviewed and
Yeah.
you aren't 100% sure on this application, then don't submit it. Because if you submit it and you go back later and you find faults or errors, your chances of getting into that college or university go down dramatically. Would you agree?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
that's really gives some of these kids like almost like a soft place to land. Like, of course, if you were aiming, for these early action due dates, but you know, some of these colleges have become so popular,
Hmm.
and these college admissions officers have thousands of applications to review.
Right.
Unless you know you're going to present your very best self for the October 15th or the November 1st, perhaps it is in your best interest to take your time, cross all your T's, dot all your I's, make sure that authentic voice of you comes through in your essays, and say that's okay. I'm not going to make these
Right.
early action deadlines, and it's just okay.
Yeah. I mean, we certainly want to shoot for those goals if we can meet them, but not at the expense of submitting an application that hasn't been thoroughly reviewed and checked and double checked, and you're not putting your best foot forward. Right.
Right.
I don't think getting it in is going to equate. Your chances aren't going to jump up that much if your application is just bad. Right. So there is definitely a trade-off there, but I think, pushing it back a few more weeks and making sure your application is just, almost perfect and you feel comfortable. To me, I think that is a much better strategy. However, if your application is ready to go, then don't hold it. Obviously, then
Well, okay,
yeah,
so that's really interesting because I don't know about you, but I feel like this year I have a lot of perfectionists
yes,
and it's that fine line like just get it done. I know it has to be perfect, but what I'm hearing from you is it probably is depending
right,
on the student and then just let go, submit it. You've done all the work. Yeah. No, that's
yeah.
terrific. That's
And
great.
that's, understanding the students, right? Because we
Yes.
know there's some students that are just perfectionists, and we're like, all right, it's good, it's ready.
Yes. Yes, yes. And then, I've been curious and I just I think this will be really helpful. So let's say we do hear like there are parents out there and I know of some parents and they're like, we just didn't hit those early action days. Like just what we're talking about and
Sure.
for whatever reasons and so if you were to, just start meeting with like new seniors, not talking about juniors yet. We'll do that
Right.
next month. But they're looking at like January, but they'd really like to be done with the majority of work before like the
Sure.
holidays in December.
Right.
So, you know, what in that first meeting with them would you say, not specifically, but just strategy wise to help them like wrap their brain around the big picture? Like what, and I'm thinking there are parents out there who are definitely in this category, like, oh, we just didn't get to those early action due dates. Is it even worth it to hire, someone to help us? You
Right.
and I are both thinking probably yes, of course,
Mm,
depending on situations.
right.
And if it is a yes, what are the reasons?
Yeah, I think it depends upon the student, where they're at and how much they have left to do and what we can do to help them, right? I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
if we, in a perfect world, the more time we can work with a student, the more, or the bigger difference bigger impact that we can make on the student. So with a
Yeah.
smaller timeline, the expectations have to
Mm,
be adjusted as well, right?
yeah.
And so we can certainly help our students. I'm speaking about we, I mean, my team and I can help these students to a certain extent, right? So we can help them build their list if they need that, or we can review their common application to dot their I's and cross their T's and
Yeah.
polish it up, right?
Yeah.
But starting from scratch, writing an essay, having it submitted, doing that multiple times over 3 weeks is difficult. It can be done, but it's just
Right.
difficult for the student and for
Right.
us because
Right.
of the time constraints, right? So
Right.
to me, it's just
Right.
understanding what the expectation is from the
What the
parents to review and
expectation
the student.
is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and like you said, like, probably a lot of these students would have a lot of the work done,
Sure,
just
I hope
needs
so.
some help. Yeah. I know, right? Help getting organized. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, and I'm so excited for you to be as main speaker on my upcoming summit. So, for those of you watching this, this is happening November 11th, 12th, and 13th. And Ryan is a key speaker. Delighted to have him, and he'll really take a deeper dive. It will be just Ryan. 30 minutes. And so I encourage you, you'll get some more communications about that to sign up. And Ryan, for anyone watching this now, watching on the replay, of course, where can they get a hold of you?
Sure. You can go to my website, clarkcollegeconsulting.com. And if you'd like to set up a no cost consultation, there's a little button on there in the middle of the screen where we can do a quick Zoom meeting and talk a little bit more personal about your family and where you're at and what I can do to potentially help you and answer any questions that you might have.
That's awesome, Ryan. Thank you. And again, if you're watching this now, Ryan is working with current high school seniors finishing up their college applications. And of course, already, how early do you start working with students? In eighth grade or ninth grade for college consulting?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We start eighth, ninth, all the way through senior year.
Eighth, ninth, okay, very good. Well, if you're a parent out there, I highly recommend you to reach out to Ryan. And if you have any writing needs, you know where you can find me here at Total Writing Enrichment. And thank you, Ryan. It's always a pleasure to have you on my show, and we will talk to everyone soon.
Thank
Take
you, Ed.
care.
Bye.
Bye bye.